So after the changes to Amon, I've come up with a new build using Eternal Winter, which is the action skill that gives you a combo where if you force rip 3 times, it'll do big damage and absorb a lot of vengeance. This used to be bad because it took in more vengeance than you could get, but now you can store 50% more vengeance. So you can just like block a bunch of attacks and fuel the whip. This is a dot build. Using mostly Tail of Comet for damage, but using dots for utility. It's a crit build too. It uses the whip, like I said, and the whip is like one of your main damage dealers, one of the 3 main damage dealers, and it's what you use most of the time. And you can keep it up constantly with now with caffeine. Now with caffeine is the only specialization you need, and it helps to have a rev kit or rep kit that has what is it superpower or something, the one that gives you 100% action skill cooldown. So on this tree we start out. When I first made this build, I put 5 points into the top left skill, the cryo skill. Um, but uh, I said the idea of this build to Ancient Rune, and when he built it, he used Scorched Earth Kairos, and when I tested it out with Scorched Earth Kairos, it was better. So yeah, that wasn't me that came up with that. That was Ancient Rune. Should look him up. He comes up with the best builds, to be honest. Uh, yeah, and then we go into Comet. Comet, like I said, is the main damage dealer of this build. So we put 5 out of 5 into it. And we have the ordnance cooldown for kill skill down there, and we have 2 points left over. So we just put that 2 points into the cryo skill to increase our chances of proccing Comet. And then we put 5 out of 5 into Blackout. Blackout is bugged right now. If you put 5 out of 5 in it, it'll give you 1 out of 5 worth of damage. Oh, sorry. But if you they're gonna fix it pretty soon, they said. So we're just putting 5 out of 5 as like a placeholder. And like I said, we're going with the Augment Eternal Winter just because it gives you action skill duration every time you whip. And you'll see we can keep it up for a long time. Oh, that's what she said. Let's see. I'll probably, there we go. And we put 3 out of 3, or yeah, 3 out of 5 into the reload skill on the green tree because we have 3 flex points and we're using for adding a little bit of damage in case everything else is down. And if we need second wins, we have a Stellium with high dot damage. But in a Molly one, 100% status effect chance on your first shot. So we shoot and reload, shoot and reload. So we just want some reload speed. And then we took 5 out of 5 in the fire. So that's the only skill that'll give us any more damage. You'll see why later on. And then we took 5 out of 5 in the status effect skill and 3 out of 3 in the weak skill. And then I just dumped 2 points into melee damage, the one that gives you overshield for melee damage. We can proc that with Groundbreaker, but that means that there's another required specialization. If you can spec it into any other of the skills that you really want, like it doesn't really matter that much. These 2 points. If you don't have Groundbreaker, do not take that 2 out of 5 though. Put it in like the shield skill or the movement speed skill or the forge skill invincibility. And then here's the real like engine of the build is we have 10 out of 5 with a class mod in Catastrophe. which means we get 20% crit chance, or 10% crit chance and 20% crit damage for applying fire and electrocute. And we have electrical fire to let us apply both at once. When we apply blackout, we also apply a burn. And you can actually get 2 electrocutes. And this electrical fire is the cooldown. You can get 2 electrocutes and 1 fire with 1 grenade throw. I'll show you the grenade we're using. You can get 2 stacks of electrical and 1 stack of fire, so you can get plus 10% crit chance and plus 40% crit damage just by throwing a grenade. And then you can do it again to get 1 more stack and get 60% crit damage. So yeah, it's pretty good. You have to get at least 9 out of 5 in catastrophe to make this work. But 10 out of 5 is preferred. Obviously, it's just a really strong and underutilized skill. I think it's a little underhyped. Maybe it's because it was already in Wonderlands, but you used to go Clawbringer just to get Awe, which was like the Wonderlands version of Catastrophe. So it's worth like speccing an entire class in Wonderlands just to get this skill. In this game, it's not as good, but it's still really good. Because the whip really does no damage in UVH5, but we can get it to do a little bit of damage. And obviously, it's really safe to use the whip. There's infinite ammo, really high attack speed, and you have the shield up at all times to block all damage. So let's see what happens next on the video. Okay, yeah, here's the Stellium. You see mine has 19,000 dot damage. It has to be shock, by the way. Mine has 19,000 dot damage, and only shock can roll that high. You can get way better than this. I saw someone on Reddit had 39k. So you can get way better than this if you really want to farm up at level 50, because they're gonna raise the level cap. But anyway, yeah, you want this to have at least like 10k dot damage, and you can get this by farming Splash Zone. He just gives out 2 or 3 purples every kill, and you just have to get lucky. And down to the grenade, we're using a throwing knife that's not the crit knife. We're using payload divider and long division to instantly stack up a couple stacks of catastrophe. And it's gonna actually do pretty good damage too. If you have catastrophe stacked up from using the whip, you can throw this for damage. Or if you throw this to stack up, you can use the whip for damage. It really depends on like what the situation is. But it's either a stacking tool or a damage dealer, depending on how you want to use it. And then I'm using a purple rep kit instead of a triple bypass because I want the overshield and the accelerator. That's what it's called, not superpower, accelerator. And I want order on it too. This is kind of like the very specific purple that I want over a triple bypass. If you don't have this, just go triple bypass with accelerator. It's not that hard to get overshield with this build. And then we go down to the class mode. Yep, 5 out of 5 points into catastrophe. It also gives some elemental damage. That's nice. We don't really. It would be nice if it had status effect damage, but obviously that's like a god roll, and I'm not gonna like drop that easily. Then instead of I think it was a little bit easier to play using the fireworks, but Watch for Dinner just has more damage. You're a lot less tanky, but when you have that overshield, you can do 25% shock damage. That's pretty good. And sometimes it'll stack an extra, like very occasionally, it'll stack an extra shock catastrophe stack. And the farm where we're going is Risky Boots and Gadget Ahoy. I could have 2 out of 3 points in Gadget Ahoy, but I don't have uh the firmware for that. But Risky Boots is what's more important, is because this is kind of like a brain dead build. Uh, so you want to be unkillable, and this makes this a lot harder to kill. Okay, and this, before we get to the video of me playing this build, I want to say that when I recorded the video, I was like very, very high. Like I had a couple edibles and I was like zoned out. I did that just to show that this, like I was playing like an animal would. Like if you put your dog on the game, they'd probably play the same way I was, or like even some creature, like some subhuman creature playing the game. Um, yeah, so I played like that, and I still just destroyed the mobbing of the hardest vault, the one with Origo. I don't Terminus range vault. Um, yeah, you can kill all the mobs, and then when you get to the boss, you switch the knife for a rocket launcher or a hail spike if you have it. And you have the high caliber gear as well, but you have to be ridiculously farmed to be able to do that. I think it's more realistic to just use a torque shotgun or a torque rocket launcher instead of the knife. And it's like stack up with the whip and then do damage with the rocket launcher. And you can kill bosses in like 1 or 2 minutes, like vault bosses. And you can kill named enemies like at order sites and stuff. You can kill them in like 30 seconds. Maybe less than that, less than 30 seconds, but more than 20. You can kill all the bosses at like mining sites and stuff. Um, but it's definitely more of a mobbing build. And then here's the blighting icon. I have transfuser on kill with my one license part spread the active status effect. And then it has primed potency. This is a one that's important. So if you have a purple one, you want to roll this one. Guns with Model 1 license parts have 100% status effect chance on the first bullet after reload. So we're going to shoot and then reload, shoot and reload. And then on this one I have shotgun status effect damage increased by 38%. That is not necessary. This Stellium is doing so much damage, there's nothing in the game. Like there's no mob in the game that can like survive being hit with this over and over. The dial only lasts 2 seconds, which is actually good, because that means we get to reapply it more and more, which will stack up. Yeah, everything is stacking up in this build. And then I just have an Oscar mic with me as well for, I guess, if I run out of shotgun ammo. I don't know. I don't know when I'd want that more than the Stellium. It's just in case. In case of what? I don't know. Okay, yeah, here again, I'm showing this. This is, if you want to make the build a little easier to play, you can play with this purple grenade. It has artillery payload, maglock, and explosive, which means that you can proc blackout 2 or 3 times pretty quickly, and get a fire stack and 2 or 3 shock stacks for your catastrophe. You just throw it out and it seeks out the enemies on its own, and then it shoots them a bunch, which gives us a ton of chances. Honestly, playing with this makes the build kind of like just like cement eater level brain dead, but I had the idea to switch it for this one, like I showed before, the throwing knife. It has divider payload and long division. The third one can be whatever you want. Yeah, it procs a bunch the same, but you have to hit crits with it, so it's like a lot harder to hit, and it's like enrichment. If you're like an animal that needs enrichment. Also, it's convenient this has risky boots on it. It's my third risky boots. Okay, and here's the gameplay. Again, I was very high when I made this. This is not how I normally play. That wasn't the first bullet. I didn't reload. That was the first bullet. That's how much damage it does. It like insta kills mobs. And then here I bring out the whip with caffeine. I ramp up the damage a bit, and it starts clearing mobs. Yeah, it just whips them down. Here I try to be cool and throw knives at the invisible enemy. But I did not hit him because I could not see him. That was probably like a not good decision. You see, I pick up these watt things, these overshields, to get electric damage, and help keep me alive. And I can just really just stand around and just keep putting out damage and not have to worry about my survivability. Yeah, you see Risky Boost just proc there, and I got 100% damage, and I forget how much lifesteal. I think it's 5% lifesteal, but 5% lifesteal was enough to refill my HP. That's the end of the playthrough. I think it's a good build. I would say for bossing, it's like a 4 out of 10. And for mobbing, in terms of like how good it is, I would say 10 out of 10. In terms of how fun it is, I would say 6 out of 10. This is just a good all around kind of okay build. Like, I would definitely suggest if you want to play a buffed build that just got buffed and you've never played before, I would suggest this build just for variety. Uh, it is good enough to clear all content on UVHM5. And the gear requirements aren't crazy. You do need some purples, but like it's not an insane pool. And there are two options for the grenade. You can have one or the other. You don't have to have both. And the firmware is really up to you. I just like Risky Boots, but if you don't have it, you don't have to use it. You can use whatever you have.